programa BIOS. Con nuevas secciones, entrevistas, enlaces telefónicos, transmisiones en vivo y mucho más. BIOS, el sonido de lo natural.
Okay, hello and welcome to Culture Shock. This is another week, another show, and here we are. Everyone's ready except Nathaniel, which will be missing the program today, and we'll miss him, right?
Yeah.
So here we are.
Willie?
Carla. Renee, me. And I'm going to introduce our special guest.
Yes, we have a
thank
special
you.
guest today.
Yes.
It's nice to feel special.
So we have Miss Andrea Gorospe. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology. Sorry. A little nervous. Psychology from WAP, and is also a linguist. She took a master's degree in language science, in which she specialized in systematic functional linguistics and critical discourse analysis. She started teaching English as a second language when she was still at college, and she has been teaching for 9 years. And she has taught people from all ages, from kindergarten to working adults. And 2 years ago, she joined UPAEP, where she teaches English, as well as social linguistics and cultural diversity at Idiomas, Enseñanza en Diversidad Culture Program.
Well,
She's our teacher.
Yay!
thank you.
Yay!
To me, the biggest honor is to be your teacher and to know that you have chosen such a fascinating topic for today. I am so proud and honored, actually, to be your teacher. More cool.
Yeah, the topic for today, for everyone who's listening, and we invite you to post any questions if you have them or any comments, to follow us on social media. Now we have an Instagram, right? The Instagram is how do they find us on Instagram?
Culture Shock you are.
And there you go, Culture Shock you are. And well, the topic for today is con languages, which are constructed languages, right? Who would like to start to just give a brief intro to what this is?
Okay, so a constructed language is a language whose phonology, grammar, and vocabulary, instead of having developed naturally, are consciously devised. So someone created it.
Yeah, someone like
Basically,
said, I want to create a language
Yeah.
and let's do it. And that's how it was created. Well, it might sound funny at the beginning because in some movies, some books have done this, right?
Yeah.
But it's becoming more and more common. And the interesting thing is how broad these languages are. And there's even one that we'll be talking about that is very big and spoken by a lot of people, right, around the world. And, well, let's start by defining the con language a little bit more. Con languages may be, the purpose may vary, right? It may be for fun. It may be for literature. It may be for TV shows like
Books.
we have now, yes. It may be for any kind of purpose, also to simplify communication between two groups or more. And, well, that's been one of the things that they expect.
Also, yes, as Carla was saying, this is an interesting topic because people don't talk about it, but as we can see it, for example, I love Game of Thrones. They have this kind of language. Avatar, that is one of the most famous movies, has also this kind of language. And if we go back a long time ago, we can see that many authors, many books, movies, TV shows, they have people that have invented these kind of languages, as Alan said, just to have fun, just to simplify or to communicate with other people so they can feel like one. So this is really interesting.
Yeah, and maybe what a lot of people may not know is that all of these famous conlangs that have been invented are invented by linguists. It's not just, I'm going to invent a language and that's it. It's more to that.
Yeah.
It has a whole grammatical structure, syntax, anything you would like to say?
Yeah, you have to consider a lot of things. We were just talking a little bit before, remember, that it's not just thinking on inventing words, because very easily I could
Yeah.
just combine sounds and pretend like I have invented a new word. But with this very simple example, I'm going to try to explain how hard it is to actually invent something. Imagine that I decide to invent three words, and I have dog, house, and I say eat. Sorry for the very lame example, but if I just say dog, eat, apple, then I could understand that the dog ate the apple. But actually, it is the syntax, the order of the words, and the fact that we have the rule in English that we have subject and then the verb and then the object, what is giving that meaning to the sentence. But without that syntax, if we had another set of rules, then the meaning would completely change. Without those rules, we could understand that the apple ate the dog. Or, what was I saying? Yeah, house?
Yeah.
That the dog ate the house. Or that the dog ate in the house. I mean, without these prepositions and without that rule that we have in English, then that meaning is not conveyed. So, what I mean is, when you are inventing a language, it's not just inventing words, but inventing rules, and even giving it some cohesiveness by even adding some history. In one of these languages, I remember, I think is one from The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
They show the evolution of that language or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it's incredible how they are showing how languages evolved. Because as you know, and as some of our listeners may know, Spanish was not the way it is now, and English was not the way it is now.
Exactly.
So creating and planning all of those little facts of how real languages, natural languages evolved and are created, to me is like, wow. I mean, it's a lot of words. That's why they have to be linguists. It's not just, I'm going to invent 3 words and voila, I have my language now.
Yeah, con languages go beyond that, right? That's why they are recognized as languages, still constructed, but languages. And one of the very interesting things, and everyone that is watching should watch also the video of a TED Talk given on con languages. It's very interesting how they summarize everything. And exactly that, right? Although the term was coined by Otto Jespersen in 1928, the father of languages in con languages would be Tolkien, right? He is considered by many the father of these constructed languages because he created Elvish. That was like the biggest one. But we have to take into consideration that at the same time he was also working on Orc language. He was working on Dwarf for the dwarves, the language. He never, there was even some words, only vocabulary. He never got to the syntax of that, but the dark language, right, that Sauron would use. But the one that he worked most on was the Elvish language. And it's fascinating to see how he has this history, like inside this mythology, about how the words were evolving as the elves would move from one part to another, how some words would become another, how the F would change for a P, or how they would make the past tense and so on. And that's what makes it a real language, right? The problem with Elvish is that there's no people to interact with, right? So pretty much a lot of guesses have to be made in order to figure out also the pronunciation, which we were talking about before the show, right? Like figure out the pronunciation. How would you do that? I remember I was watching this special on Lord of the Rings, and they hired an Elvish specialist, and you can see the title there. Like, it even became a meme among the community because he's like, "What do you do for a living?" And it's like, Elvish specialist.
That's a cool
right?
title to
have. And so that's what makes it very interesting. And from those, a lot of them become. We have a lot of examples of con languages in pop culture, right? Can we talk about those examples? We have, for example, Dothraki, which is now very well known in Game of Thrones. Yes.
Yeah.
We have Navi from Avatar. Yes, which let's remember that is the movie with the biggest money put together.
Biggest money making.
Yeah, money making. Yeah, it's still the first place.
Until we'll see.
We'll see. And second place is still
Avengers
Titanic.
Ooh.
Yeah, still Titanic. So number 1 and number 2 still from James Cameron, both of them. But let's see. I hope.
What happened in 1 month?
Yeah, because in one weekend it was oof, right? We have also Klingon.
From Star
Trek.
Right, from Star Trek. We have
Vulcan
that.
also.
Vulcan, also from the Star Trek saga. I don't know how well Vulcan is developed. That's interesting, right?
I think Duolingo has a course So you can learn.
But on Klingon,
Klingon.
right?
Vulcan, it's on the process.
Yeah, okay. Nice. Yeah, on Duolingo that they have these amazing they have you have the chance to learn Klingon and
High Valerian
Esperanto.
too.
High Valerian from
High
Game of
Valerian
Thrones,
again
yeah.
as well. Wow.
I'm shocked.
That's new. That's new because I knew they had Esperanto and
Maybe
and the
we
other one.
say that to students. They will download Duolingo.
Yeah, probably yes.
Now that's going to convince them.
Yeah, so we have all of these, and the interesting part, one of the most fascinating things about creating the language, and I want you to then give me your thoughts on that, is that when you're creating a language, when a linguist goes into this process, right, it's not just the process of creating a word, but for example, what they did on Game of Thrones was a new process, which was imagining the culture at the same time that
Yeah.
they were imagining the language, which goes even deeper, right? Because we know that we cannot separate language and culture. They always go so tied together. And so what's your opinion about that? How would you imagine a new culture? Do you think this process would be easy?
No, in fact, if we can see it, if we can read a book, and for example, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, that are books that they have a lot of information to process, and they have an universe. It's not
Yes.
just books.
Yeah.
It's incredible how a person or a group of people can create an universe that it's another world, so we can feel really part of it. So it's the same with these kind of languages. The people that create these languages, these kind of languages, is because, as we said, it's for something. And what I'm thinking right now, it's when we or the people are watching something in TV or are reading books. Maybe sometimes I think that people think, okay, they just invented in that time, and that's it. But I don't think they think in the process.
Yeah.
I think they don't think in all that it
The
goes, the depth of the process to create these kind of languages. I think sometimes we think, and generalizing, we think like, okay, they are saying that those things just in that moment, and that's it.
You can
Yeah.
even say. Sorry.
I was going to mention that, for example, the Dothraki, like you have to imagine a culture. How do you do that? Because even in our language classes, we don't really get to learn the culture itself. We're just learning the language, but we're not learning anything about its culture.
Or
Depending
you're
on-
lucky you get a teacher who
yeah,
might.
who might include a little
Include
bit
a
of
bit,
culture,
right?
but even in well-known languages like English, Spanish, French, we don't really get to learn about the
Yeah.
culture. So imagine creating a language and you have to imagine a whole culture. So I think it's pretty difficult.
It gives more credibility to that world. You get immersed into that world instead of just having random sounds here and
Yes.
there.
Yes.
So
You,
it's very
you know that it's
Yeah.
planned, right? That's
Yeah.
are we Avatar lovers or not really?
But I would say that I would dare to say that the listener feels like it's real because it is well planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say that the listener can sense the structure. Even though
Yes.
it's not completely aware of it, I guess that it senses, and that's how as you're saying, it's giving it credibility.
Not
because-
just random sounds,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that if it were random sounds, we would notice it.
I think that that's the reason why Avatar is one of the most famous movies. There are people that don't like it. It's okay, but it's not only the video. It's not only the visual things. It's also
The
depth.
plants.
Right. It's also because the people that give like how can I say it? The grades to the movies, they know that there is a process, and they know that they created an universe, and in this universe there is a new language. So there's all these things that they take into consideration to give to say that it's a good or it's not a good movie, and it's the credibility.
Yeah, and that's very interesting what you're mentioning, because Avatar is the Na'vi is based on this, not just on these random sounds that these people from this planet would make, but also based on the plants that they created for that, on the animals they created for that, on the atmosphere, because it looks like a very hot place, like very extreme weather, right? And also this relationship that the Na'vi have with the land there. Because they are very spiritual, they're very earth-centered, right? And they want to protect life there. Even when they hunt, they have this very long phrase, like a praying, right? To thank the animal for giving its meat to them, and thank the earth for giving them meat and blah. And it's, I think that's what makes it very fascinating. And also, what I think makes the movie very credible in that sense is that the main character, he struggles with the language. And he's being made fun of because he's not learning the language, right? And that's a process we can all relate to that. Yeah. And it's not, the movie didn't show it just like, oh yeah, he learned and it's very easy language. And no, he took his time. He couldn't learn it like 100%. He would just learn some phrases. And when he hunts is the first time he gives like a complete phrase in the movie. And the girl congratulates him, right? Like, oh, you're ready.
Yeah, as well as Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen, when she first is introduced to the Iraqi, they portray it as someone who isn't a native speaker. But then later on, as the seasons advance, she's portrayed as this person who really knows it, who seem like a native.
Yeah,
she's like
the leader now.
Yeah, the leader now of the Iraqis.
Yeah, it's just how she finally absorbs the language. And I think that is precisely a great example of how language is part of a culture. And it makes it more complex, and it shows the person, I would say, to simplify it, the personality of that group of people.
Yeah.
But
we're not gonna get I don't want to get into the debate of whether it's good or bad to like adapt to the languages, right? But we've seen it not only in movies and TV shows, but we can talk about the reality of it, right? In let's say a foreign exchange student who speaks better Spanish than others will be more easily accepted by young people here, let's say in the university, right? They would invite him probably more places because they can communicate easily, right? The same with us, if our level of English, right? That how we'll be accepted in those groups. I'm not saying it's good, it's bad, but that's the reality that happens, right? There's like, oh, he understands, he can speak, let's invite him, right? And if not, it's like, oh, okay, only if I have time, if I can be patient with him, I will probably dedicate time to that. And that's what happens. Okay, so anything else we would like to add before going to the break?
Well, it's interesting to see, because a lot of these languages were not fully constructed, but the fans were the ones that created like the dictionaries.
Yes, that is something very interesting to talk about. Yeah, so Carla just told us what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break, right? So let's go back, let's go to a break, and we'll be back in a minute.
Estudio la maestría en Ingeniería Ambiental y Desarrollo Sustentable en UPAEP. Soy un apasionado de la naturaleza. Me gusta el deporte, leer, asistir al teatro, jugar ajedrez y practicar yoga. Desde que entré a UPAEP he buscado emprender con causa. Mi proyecto de tesis es un trabajo con pepenadores. El objetivo es que mejoren sus condiciones de vida, para lo cual estoy desarrollando un modelo para que puedan aumentar sus ingresos a través de un centro de acopio. Mi meta es irme de intercambio y comparar este modelo con el de otros países, porque se ha demostrado que, con este tipo de acciones, los pepenadores logran salir adelante y mejoran considerablemente sus oportunidades. Quiero que mi existencia deje una huella positiva en el mundo. Mi historia comienza aquí. Soy David y soy UPAEP.
Soy de Yotosco, Guerrero, Puebla. Estoy en el 9º semestre de fisioterapia en UPAEP y he encontrado mi vocación. Recordar mi infancia es recordar una época de mucho esfuerzo. Me gusta mucho ayudar a la gente y por eso fui voluntario en la Cruz Roja de Huitamalco, Puebla. En bachillerato hice servicio social en una unidad básica de rehabilitación, lo cual me convenció de que fisioterapia era lo que realmente quería estudiar. Estoy becado gracias al programa Una apuesta de futuro de UPAEP, en donde desarrollamos el proyecto social Jóvenes en Acción por Ayotosco, que tiene como objetivo hacer mejoras para la comunidad. Desde mi área de estudio hicimos un manual para que los pacientes continúen su tratamiento desde casa, aun cuando no puedan asistir a consulta. El próximo semestre me iré de intercambio a España. Es otro sueño cumplido y una apuesta de futuro y UPAEP me han dado esta gran oportunidad. Para mí, ser UPAEP es romper tus paradigmas y aprovechar cada oportunidad que se presenta para ayudar a los que más te necesitan. Esta es mi vocación. Soy Ernesto y soy UPAEP.
Está de vuelta. No te pierdas todos los martes en punto de las 13 horas tu programa BIOS. Con nuevas secciones, entrevistas, enlaces telefónicos, transmisiones en vivo y mucho más. BIOS, el sonido de lo natural está de vuelta. No te lo pierdas todos los martes en punto de las 13 horas.
Okay, and we're back for more discussion. So, Carla, what was the thing that you were mentioning?
Well, about Elvish, for example, Tolkien didn't fully create the language. He just formed certain words, but the fans collected some of his work and started building this language. So they constructed the language. For example, Star Trek has a dictionary with more than 3,000 words. And they actually translated Hamlet into Klingon. Very nerdy.
They even have a Monopoly game board
In Klingon?
You have to be super
There's
fun.
even a Hamlet version of in
like to
Klingon,
see
right?
that.
A Hamlet version in Klingon. Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
And there's even this doctor that tried to teach his child Klingon as a first language, right? And he succeeded with his child, but the interaction was very limited because he was only between each other, right? So that was where he realized that without this interaction, it cannot the language cannot be fostered, right? But these communities are also growing at the same time, right? Like the Klingon community is growing and growing. We can see examples of that on Big Bang Theory, right?
Yeah.
How these guys are obsessed with that world, and how they even say complete phrases in some of the episodes. So that's very interesting. What about Dothraki and High Valyrian? What interesting things do we have?
Well, Dothraki and High Valyrian were created by David J. Peterson. He states that he was at a convention. Actually, I forgot to mention that the Language Creation Society was created among people who are dedicated to constructing languages, and they have annual conventions where they gather. This year would be in Cambridge, United Kingdom, on 22nd and 23rd of June. So yeah, they're promoting, they get to talk about books, journals, everything that's related to invented languages or constructed languages. So yeah, he said that he was talking to another fellow member of his, colleague, and they actually told him that the Dothraki at the beginning, they were just speaking gibberish. They were just making
The
the
actors,
words.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the actars.
And that's it.
Yeah,
That's
the Dothraki wasn't
that's what I
actually a
was saying,
language.
In
at
the casting
beginning.
process,
Yeah,
right?
in the casting
okay.
process, they were just speaking gibberish. So he just decided to create this, and yeah, so
Thanks
that's
goodness.
where everything was born. The Dothraki was born because of
This need, right?
yeah, this need that they were just
So
saying
what he did was he went through the books,
The
right? The
sounds
first
of
books.
Yeah.
He analyzed the culture. He saw that they were these the best is the strongest, right? Kind of culture where the strongest was the leader, and he had to be showing off his power all the time. If not, he could be challenged by other members that wanted the power, and that they were afraid of getting into a ship because they've never been out of land. They would ride
Yeah.
horses.
He also mentioned, for example, like an insult, something like you're walking like a little boy. Not really because of the little boy, except that these people, their culture is always riding horses. So walking was an insult because they don't walk.
Yeah.
It's either horse or nothing. So that's a little insult. I don't know how to say it in Dothraki, but yeah, it was something like you're walking like a little boy.
Yeah, and because it's oral, right? They don't have a writing system because of their culture. There is no books, and there's not even a word for book because they don't
And no
understand
one
the
can
concept
say
of reading.
if it exists or not. And
But-
they were just saying things, and that's it.
Yes.
But Peterson also mentioned that the fact that they don't have the word book in the Dothraki, it doesn't mean that they don't understand the concept, because he mentioned that when Daenerys arrived, she spoke High Valyrian, and maybe she introduced this, and maybe later on the word will be invented. But for now, there isn't a word. But he mentioned that it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't understand the concept of it. So.
Yeah, it could even mean a different level of importance that they're giving to that word, and the way they perceive it. If it's not relevant, or if they don't need that word in that moment because they do not have books, then okay, the word doesn't exist. But that doesn't, as you're saying, it doesn't mean that they don't get the idea of what it is to read, because they are familiar with the action that is done by other cultures. And what I wanted to say is that it's interesting how they analyzed the relation between the culture with the vocabulary that they have. For example, the fact that they lack the word for thank you
For thank you, yeah.
is like, I'm to me it feels like an exaggeration. The fact that they don't have the word thank you. I mean, because in a way it could be interpreted as the fact that they are not polite. I mean, as a listener, as an observer of the, I am not a fan, to be honest. But from the outside, I could feel like they're trying to represent the fact that they are not polite, that they are not kind in that sense. I don't know, I feel it a little bit as an exaggeration, but it could be an attempt to keep the coherence between the use
How
of language.
aggressive and good warriors they are.
Exactly.
Right?
Is it I'm not exactly sure, but in Russian, there's a word that's the same for thank you and you're welcome, I think. Or I'm not exactly sure what it is.
I have like German with the bitte.
Oh, yeah, but there's one word for asking two different things. So they were saying that exactly doesn't mean that maybe they are not. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe I think this is what.
Or maybe they have a gesture for
Yeah.
thank you. Well, yeah, there may be that,
Maybe,
right?
maybe there's not a word, but yeah, as I also read that, for example, Peterson found very interesting that in 2004, Passion of the Christ, the movie came out, and their language it wasn't invented. It was actually a dead language spoken in Syria. And that's when he noticed that people were willing to watch movies in languages that they did not understand. So, because if you think about it, in certain movies, like where there's alien arrival, they speak English. Aliens will speak English, and that's it. So, after this, I feel like they started to notice, or with Lord of the Rings as well, they noticed that people were willing to are interested and willing to watch a movie that in a language that they don't understand.
Yeah.
So.
Which we are used to, but because we are
Yeah.
native Spanish speakers. But for the people in the US, to them it's like, what?
Yeah.
Really? Do I have to read subtitles? And we are familiar with that, but they're not.
Yeah. So.
And to finish with High Valyrian and Dothraki, Dothraki was based on, they took inspiration from Turkish, Russian, Swahili, and Inuktitut. Right? I don't know if I got that right. And for High Valyrian, they got Estonian, Russian, Swahili, and Latin, right? And that's why it sounds so cool when they say Valar Morghulis, right?
A lot of these
Sounds nice.
constructed languages are based on real languages. Like,
Yes.
for example, Newspeak, the language used in the George Orwell's novel, 1984. It's based on a restricted form of English. And for example, Navi, the language in Avatar, is the linguist that created the language said that he really liked how this tribe in Africa, the sounds they made in their language sounded. So that's based on that tribe. For example, I don't remember how it's called. The lingo that they use in the movie A Clockwork Orange. I don't know if you have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
It's based on English and Russian. It's
Yes.
like a mix of it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very
an interesting one as well.
And another fact about High Valyrian, you can learn it on Duolingo.
Check it out on Duolingo.
Yeah, check it out and learn. I only know Khaleesi. That's like the only word I know.
Oh yeah,
High
because
Valyrian.
In Cal, because it was Cal too.
Yeah, 'cause that's the,
And
Cal's
that's the only
wrong, yeah, Cal,
two words
yeah.
that I know, and that's it.
yeah, and that's it.
And until his end, Sir Jorah Mormont would call Daenerys Khaleesi, right? Until his
Yeah.
end. But yeah, that's very interesting. What other things can we mention about these languages?
We can say some words that we researched.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Like, for example, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Noknech is literally what do you want, because the Klingon race is not very inviting, so it's like saying hello to them.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay.
I know some of from the movie Avatar. We have when Jake is getting these like bugs on his body, and he wants like to get them out. The other girl says "Tokirina," which is like stop, right? And we have also the biggest phrase in the movie, "Oel Engatika Meya," right? Which means "I see you," but it's more. It's like in a deep way, right? Spiritual way. It's not like I physically see you, but I feel you, I see you, I recognize you, right? And Turuk Makto, which is the big beast, right? That is written by Jake at the end. Well, it's only the Turuk, but Big Makto is the one who writes it, and that's those are very cool words, right? And they sound very strong there.
What would be when Khaleesi it's in with the dragon and they say like fire? It's Dracarys. I
But
think
that's
it's
the name
fire.
of the dragon.
Oh, that's the name.
Dracarys, yes. Dracarys is the
No,
name.
It's the name of the dragon.
Yes, it's
Yes?
Dracaryn. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know any High Valyrian. No, Khaleesi is not even Valyrian. It's Dothraki, no?
Well, no.
Both.
Now you're
Both because he get married with
right now.
Well, she shows us during the show that she speaks a lot of
Yeah, she
languages,
speaks a lot of
right?
languages.
But well, she speaks Dothraki because she's in charge of the Dothraki now. But her first language was High Valyrian because she is Targaryen.
And she's a
right?
Targaryen. Yeah, even like when she's introduced to the Dothraki community, a lot of them make fun of her because like she's
Her
not
accent
learning
and
her
everything,
accent.
yeah.
And then once in like further seasons, she reunites with these Dothraki, and they're speaking bad of her, like in front of her. They're speaking like really rudely of her, like badly, and she's surprised
Yeah.
at that because she's like, she starts talking to them in Dothraki, and they're like, oh, you understand, and then that's when she tells that she was a wife of a Caldrago, and they kind of respect her, kind of.
An interesting thing about going back to Navi is that James Cameron wanted this language in his world, right? Because he had imagined this world since he was a kid for many years, and he wanted to do the movie for so many years, but he said that the technology wasn't up to the level that he wanted it to
His
be.
dreams come true.
And when he saw that all these IMAX cameras, the 3D technology was at its peak, he said like, okay, I'm ready to do it. And he hired a linguist to create this language. But again, the community intervened a lot in expanding the language, right?
Yeah.
But of course, the base is very well cemented there because the linguist would do it, and then the community just tries to expand it based on that foundation that is already done.
They also have on set dialect coach.
Yeah.
So there's always someone who's preparing these actors to actually pronounce these words correctly, and not just like pronouncing whatever.
Yeah, they say for them it's like learning a new language.
Yeah.
You have to learn the language to interpret that character.
So, yeah.
Right now, Navi is to 2,200 words, right? And it's expanding. And new movies are coming out, so we'll get to listen to more Navi, and I'm super excited about that, right?
Yeah, it's a big evidence of how languages need speakers and need culture and need communicative situations in order to really develop. And that's the interesting part about these communities that you were saying a little bit ago, how the actual need of communicating between them. And I guess the communication, the creation of situations and relationships between them. And now that they have this necessity to actually talk about other things. Because in a way, these languages are created to communicate about specific things that happen within the show or within the book.
Right.
But once you need to use it to communicate about more mundane, casual things of daily life, then
Right.
you end up with the necessity
Yes.
to communicate about this, and then you evolve the language.
And this is where people intervene, right? The fans.
Yeah, that's the reason why fans they create more words about the language.
I was sorry.
It's interesting for me that you mentioned that the culture behind it, because I think that's why Esperanto didn't thrive, because
There's no
it
culture.
has to be universal, so it doesn't have a specific culture behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that attempt.
That's
of-
true. Esperanto here in Mexico, I've never heard anyone speaking it. But around the world, truth is the most popular
Yeah, they
constructed language, right? It has how many speakers does he have?
200,000.
Well, he has a lot,
It has
right?
a lot.
I mean, there
and
are a lot,
there are
but
native speakers as well, right?
Interesting thing about Esperanto, which is the most well-known language, right, of these con languages, is that it was created by an ophthalmologist. That this is an exception for the linguist rule, right? He saw the need to create a universal language, right, of having people communicate, and the dilemma comes here. That's the conundrum there, but there's no culture for such a language. But at the same time, we should learn to be world citizens, right? So it's not just one culture, but it's everyone's culture. And cool thing about Esperanto is that it doesn't have any irregularities,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? It avoids that, and it's based on some elements that he chose from specific languages that he liked because of their easiness to learn, right? Also, he chose phonemes that weren't that hard to pronounce, like the most basic phonemes for everyone to be able to pronounce and not have random things there. All the conjugations follow a specific order. There's a specific order for all structures. There's no irregularities, and that's what probably makes it very popular among some people, right?
But that would actually make it like the ideal language for any student, right?
Yeah.
It's like all of our students are like, no, why? But why? Another exception, teacher, why?
Yes.
They always want to kill me every time I show them an exception. But at the same time, I think it could make it boring in a way. But
Probably boring to learn, but
Boring to learn.
if it showed that you can communicate with anyone, then it could, right?
Yeah.
It's
And the community is
incredible.
growing, and that's
Yes,
something that is
because
going there.
Esperanto is actually taught in some universities.
Yes.
in a way, it's supposed to be an excellent option. I mean, if it's so easy, and anyone can learn it.
Should be an
And
universal
in
language.
theory.
Well,
in theory, exactly. Honestly, I haven't tried to learn it, definitely. But, I found this interesting criticism is that at the same time, it's supposed to be, its motivation and its reason to be is the fact that it's universal. So it's supposed to represent like everyone in the world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, its origin is Latin, Greek, and European languages.
Yeah.
So,
So
nope, I don't think it's universal.
we have to go on a break, but when we come back, we'll discuss more about this.
Awesome.
We'll be back in a minute.
Soy Luis Fernando Rodríguez. Tengo 23 años y acabo de graduarme como ingeniero en electrónica y comunicaciones en UPAEP. Disfruto el tiempo en familia, me gusta aprender idiomas y practico karate. Desde pequeño me apasiona la astronomía. Soñaba con investigar el espacio y las estrellas. Los años y la experiencia me llevaron a elegir una carrera más práctica, pero nunca dejé de lado este sueño. Cuando la NASA, a través de la Agencia Espacial Mexicana, puso en manos de UPAEP la misión de construir el nanosatélite Aztec-SAT-1,
supe que el sentido de mi carrera apuntaba al espacio. Como parte del proyecto, colaboro en los equipos de electrónica y software de vuelo. Ha sido una experiencia transformadora. Es el proyecto de mi vida y UPAEP lo ha hecho posible. Con la guía de nuestros profesores, hemos superado minuciosas revisiones por parte de la NASA. El lanzamiento programado para octubre será un gran logro para la comunidad universitaria y para México. Esta experiencia me ha enseñado a trabajar en equipo y a ser un líder que predica con el ejemplo. En UPAEP aprendí a darle sentido a mi carrera y esto ha sido decisivo para alcanzar mis sueños. Para mí, ser UPAEP es dejar el alma en cada proyecto. Todo esto soy yo. Soy Luis Fernando y soy UPAEP.
En México, la leucemia es la principal causa de muerte por enfermedad de niños de 5 a 14 años. En UPAEP queremos transformar esta realidad. Un grupo de estudiantes de diferentes posgrados estamos desarrollando un proyecto que busca identificar nuevos marcadores moleculares de leucemia. Esta investigación es conducida por la doctora Rocío Baños del Centro de Investigación Oncológica Una Nueva Esperanza UPAEP. Con este proyecto participamos en 2 convocatorias. La primera en la Universidad de San Diego, la cual nos sirvió mucho para afinar nuestro proyecto. La segunda fue en Tsinghua University, en China, donde concursamos 67 equipos de todo el mundo y solo pasamos 11. Trabajamos mucho durante 2 semanas y al final valió la pena. Resultamos ganadores del primer lugar y obtuvimos apoyo para seguir con nuestro proyecto. Mi historia se transforma con cada acción que emprendo. Aún me falta mucho por contar. Soy David y soy UPAEP.
Escúchanos todos los miércoles de 3 a 4 de la tarde por Puebla FM. UPAEP presenta.
We are back, and well, now Alan is not with us. That's sad. Well, now let's see what students say about this interesting topic, called languages. So let's see the Vox Populi, and we are back.
Bienvenidos a Culture Shock. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre los lenguajes construidos. Vamos a verlo. Hola, ¿te gustaría inventar un idioma? Y si no o sí, ¿por qué?
Yo creo que sí me gustaría inventar un idioma para tener mejor comunicación con las personas, a pesar de que ya hay muchísimas, y sobre todo pues una como lengua privada entre amigos, que solo entre nosotros nos entendamos, y pues sí, esa es la razón.
¿Cómo crees que surgen los idiomas?
Surgen por la necesidad de, ahora sí, de comunicarse, de que las personas sepan si tienes alguna molestia, no sé, si algo está pasando, poderle informar a otra persona y de esta forma que sepa lo que está pasando.
¿Conoces alguna película donde se hable un lenguaje inventado?
Sí, hay muchas. En Atlantis, la de Disney, creo que tienen un idioma, y pues no sé, Harry Potter y creo que ya, la lengua de F, que todos hemos hablado, que no es una película, pero todos hablamos en F, creo que la mayoría, y pues sí, es todo.
Gracias.
Hola, ¿cómo crees que surgen los idiomas?
Pues yo creo que la gente necesitaba un medio para comunicarse y la mejor manera era tener un intercambio de señas, de códigos, palabras, lo que sea, que pudieran conocer entre sí y de alguna manera entenderse mutuamente. Yo creo que era más una estabilidad social y una necesidad que un lujo.
¿Te gustaría inventar algún tipo de lenguaje? Si es así, ¿por qué?
Sería interesante, yo creo que sí. Y yo creo que la principal razón sería para darme a entender a mi modo, como poder hablar explícitamente y que la gente, por lo menos de mi comunidad, pueda entender lo que digo, ya sea un idioma tipo memes o cosas de ese tipo, sería bastante útil.
¿Qué palabras utilizas con tu familia o amigos que solo ustedes conozcan?
Yo creo que son palabras más relacionadas a experiencias o acontecimientos que tenemos entre nosotros. No sé, puede que utilizamos mucho apodos, quizá el camarada, no sé. Realmente son apodos en general y el resto de las palabras son simplificaciones de pues, como vos, ahorita, ahí nos vemos, no sé, realmente se utilizan a cada momento y no sabría decir cuáles lo utilizo con más frecuencia. Entonces,
Ok, gracias.
Hola, ¿cómo crees que surgen los idiomas?
Pues más que nada siento que es por la necesidad de comunicarse y expresar con otros para entenderse y así pues, llegar a algo, ¿no? Concluir algo. Pues eso.
¿Te gustaría inventar un idioma? Y si es así, ¿por qué?
No, la neta no, porque pues si lo inventara yo batallaría para que los demás me lo entendieran. No, siento que no sería pues, útil.
¿Tienes alguna palabra o lenguaje que solo utilices con tus amigos y familia y solo ellos entiendan?
Pues no, no que yo sepa, digo, tal vez son palabras que se usan en mi comunidad y no se usan acá. Pues a ver, me quiero acordar de una como, no, se me fue, no me acuerdo.
Ok, gracias.
Hola, ¿cómo crees que surgen los idiomas?
Bueno, pues creo que es por la necesidad de comunicarse, ya que el ser humano desde sus inicios siempre ha tenido justamente esta necesidad de como entablar relaciones interpersonales.
¿Te gustaría inventar algún lenguaje? Si es así, ¿por qué?
A la vez sí, a la vez no. Bueno, sí porque pues estaría como padre tener como tu propio idioma en el que ciertas personas puedan entenderte, y a la vez no, porque igual sería como muy difícil de comunicarte con otras personas que no conoces.
¿Conoces alguna película en la que haya lenguaje inventado?
Bueno, creo que hay en varias, pero de las que me acuerdo puede ser Harry Potter y El Señor de los Anillos, creo.
Ok, gracias.
What do you guys think about the books populi? Thoughts, comments?
They have really good ideas about
Yeah.
code languages.
They
And in
do.
fact, I'm impressed because they know if they want to invent a language, they know the purpose. So that's good. No, that's one of the
I was
good things.
actually gonna say that it's kind of ironic that I was mentioning earlier to our teacher that it's ironic how we're inventing languages and natural languages are dying. And people are like not interested, or for cultural reasons. For example, here in Mexico, a lot of indigenous languages are dying because they're afraid to be discriminated. So I think it's kind of ironic how natural languages are just dying, and here we are inventing new ones. So.
Yeah, I actually felt bad because how you brought this to my mind, I felt bad because I let myself be distracted by the fact that this is so interesting that I didn't notice how, yeah, what you just said, that we are letting all the languages die with, and instead of being curious on the way they developed and on the way their syntax and their morphology is formed, we are being curious by analyzing Dothraki, and I'm not saying that is wrong, but yeah, it's ironic, and I feel bad about it.
So.
Well, we've talked about languages created for TV shows, movies, and I'm sorry, but as the big nerd that I am, I have to intervene. And we haven't talked about languages created for video games, and there are a lot of them. For example, Simlish in The Sims. There are actually there's a CD album, a music album, where artists like Katy Perry and others sang their famous songs, but in Simlish.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Interesting.
That one was, like,
it
really
sounds
funny.
really funny. I like how it sounds.
Yeah, and I actually, I used to be a big fan of the game. The problem is that it's so terribly addictive.
Yes,
That's what people say. That's what
I have this gigantic trauma with it. That if you want, I will someday tell you the story. And that's how one day I just cold turkey stopped playing it. It's getting creepy. But yeah, one part of me was like, what are they saying? And I was trying to understand it. I never really took it like that seriously, but
it has its own dictionary if you are interested.
no, because I'm gonna hit rock bottom again.
We're not gonna have class anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that's dangerous.
For example, Hylian in The Legend of Zelda, that, as we mentioned earlier, it has changed over the years. In the first game, it's different than in the last game. For example, World of Warcraft, is similar to Lord of the Rings because it has like 6 or 7 languages created for each of the races that are in the game. So it's
Wow.
very broad. Yeah.
Dedication. We were also mentioning that language creation society for only $800, you can have your own language created. So what do you guys think about that? I think it's very interesting, right? Because a lot of the people that were interviewed said that they would like their own language to be created. So maybe. I don't think a lot of people know about this. I don't know if they'll be willing to pay the $800 to actually have their full language developed, but
But we
interesting
can
thought.
create actually UPAEP's language.
Yeah.
And then if we get our UPAEP's language, then only us could be the
Yes.
speakers of it. And then we would
That would
have
be
that,
really interesting.
that
interesting.
secret language that some
Yeah.
of the people on the Vox Populi were talking about. Imagine that. We have a language for our community. So if you want to start a piggy bank, I think we should all...
We will hire one of them.
Yeah, I think we should get this one.
Yeah, because I don't think I'm capable to create a
Too
language.
difficult.
So yeah, it's
Well,
pretty
I'm sure
difficult,
you
but-
are. As great
Yes,
students,
we need
Time
help.
consuming.
We need help.
Yeah,
yeah,
to
I
do
help.
it.
definitely. Definitely it requires a lot of work.
And
but-
help, because I think that
Time.
by your own, I think that's almost impossible. You need help, advice, and all these kind
To
of things.
review it,
Review
use
it,
some
right.
other
Yeah.
external apps
And help
to
always.
look at it.
Always helps.
Yeah, I agree.
For example, I've noticed that we've only talked about written languages, spoken languages, like but with vocals and letters. But for example, Parseltongue in Harry Potter
Yeah.
it's mimicking the sounds that a snake can make because it doesn't have lips. It doesn't have like the similar I don't know how to call it, like or vocal system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
vocal structure.
So yeah, for example, in the movie Arrival, it's like circles only. It doesn't have words.
Yeah, that's so just freaking weird. But yeah, it's quite interesting how, as you're saying with Parseltongue, I think. So, my goodness, these people studying the sounds that a snake
Yeah.
can make,
Yeah.
and at the same time comparing it with the sounds that a human can make. Because I think that's what was the tricky part. Because in a way with Klingon and etc, they are playing with sounds that humans can make, and that is in a way a limitation to
Yeah.
those languages. You cannot create a language with sounds that we cannot
That we cannot
make as humans. But this like thinking on, okay, which sounds can the snakes make and which can we make, and then with those sounds, and then deciding what each sound means. My goodness, creating phonemes with
It's the hardest part.
exactly with the sounds of a snake. My goodness, these people.
Yeah. And you, in your own opinion, because well, you have been studying linguistics for a long time, I think so, and you're expert. You know about these topics. And what do you think about these code languages? And if you're like kind of fan of maybe TV show, book, or movies that has these kind of languages, and why? What do you think about it?
Well, definitely the first thing that I love about the topic that you chose is how it shows the complexity of our language, and it shows the complexity of what you are studying. That's why I was saying that with your capacity, I would love to say that you could do this. I mean, it is very common that we feel like we couldn't do it because we have this, I think that is actually part of Mexican culture, to feel like, no, we are not able to do it. But if each one of you focused on, let's say you focus on lexicality, and you focus on the morphology of it, and you focus on the syntax of it, and some other person focuses on the cultural aspect of it, you could work together and actually with all of that knowledge combine it and work as a team and create a language. I mean, yes, of course, these constructed languages show the complexity of linguistics.
Yes.
But as a group of 6 people, then you could perfectly well construct a language.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think actually it's also, well, yeah, I'm just impressed by these people, and I really respect the fact that they have focused on language as a language. That they haven't thought of, of it, like let's just make them, as you were saying before, let's just make him be like giverish about it, like just say blah,
Or
blah,
noises,
blah.
and that's it.
Exactly. Let's not just make
Let's
them
make
be
it
blah
think
blah,
that.
blah 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 because they could have done that, and that's actually the first thing that I thought about Simlish.
Yeah.
That it was just like random.
It sounds very
It sounds random, but
yeah.
so I'm impressed by the fact that it is not.
Yeah.
That they respected language and they worked so much that they worked on giving it meaning and relevance and the technicality that a language requires.
I have a question. Do you think that because of right now constructed languages are so popular, do you think more people are willing to study linguistics, are willing to major in linguistics because of this? Or because I feel like the field of linguistics is not very appreciated. It's just like, what do you study? Linguistics.
In a
Or-
way, I focus. I hope. In a way, that's what I hope. Because with this topic, I think we can show how it is not a dead science. I mean, it is something that is completely alive and that it has a very practical use to show and to create art. So I think that's my hope, that shows like this show people how it is practical, it is useful, and it is pretty much alive, and it can even be something commercialized. It can be also a profession, a way to get immersed into the movie business, into the book business, or any other kind of business, into the video game business. I mean, and yeah, I'm hoping that also leads people, once they are immersed into linguistics, into analyzing other languages like our indigenous languages.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think, well, we were discussing this earlier, that it will be kind of disrespectful to the culture to use these indigenous languages in a movie or in a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we will be rescuing the language, but at the same time, it's kind of offensive to the community. Well, it depends on what type of show we're talking about, but it can be offensive.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that's the reason why a lot of linguists just stick to creating a new one, because maybe it's less complicated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think another part of it is that I read that these linguists that create these languages, they wanted to create a language that people believe that they are from another planet, that they are not from something human. So
it's a way to expand our world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, because people have to start thinking that linguistics is something really important. For example, fans that they start doing more words because they feel the need to communicate with other fans, and they create vocabulary. That's a community. And also, maybe they don't know, but what they are doing is something about linguistics and something really important, and they like it. So that's a very important part of this this community, and sometimes they don't know, and they are being part of something, and that's really good.
Yeah, so
they are honorary linguists now.
So we are running out of time, but I hope you guys enjoyed our show. Thank you.
Thank you, guest.
Yeah,
It was
thank
my
you
honor.
for accepting our invitation. And
we'll see you
yeah,
next
we
week.
will see you next week with more
talk.
culture shock.
Right.
And no, they're not done yet. But yeah, so we still don't know what we will talk about for next.
it's a surprise.
It's a surprise.
Well, we
but
don't know yet, but well, it's gonna be, of
any
course, a good show.
suggestions,
A good
you
show,
can
just
comment
like.
on it as well.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe the listeners could recommend topics if you want for the future.
So yeah. So I think that's it.
I don't know.
See you next week.